Women Helping Women was an idea whose time had come, that we really were stepping out of our comfort zone. We were leaving home to go to work, and we just saw opportunities to make things better for each other, and I think that was a real motivating factor.
The first year, we got a slew of requests, but it was not clear that it was for women and girls. So we had to be very picky about what we funded and what we didn't. And I think we ended up giving about $800,000 to the community for Project for Women and Girls.
Back in those days, there weren't too many women organizations that were looking out for women. I knew how important it was for women to take charge of their life.
I joined as a charter member because I was so intrigued by the notion of women helping women. I think I came out of the birth canal a feminist.
Our mission was to even that gap between focusing on men and boys and focus on women and girls and make that a concentrated effort.
We were to teach women about philanthropy from all socioeconomic groups, and we were funding research to look at how corporations in Houston were particularly sensitive to women's issues or family issues, not just women and girls, but family issues.
Also, what impressed me was the fact that they were willing to open the doors for everyone, which they believed in diversity, and for me, that was so important.
I found out that they were educated women who didn't know. Women who had gone through their 4 years of college and whatever, and they still had a flaw in their education as to how to be financially independent. And that is still a catastrophe today.
We gave money to programs that benefited women and girls. If a woman had a boy, it wasn't as though we didn't give it to that woman, but it was the girls that we looked at and the women who we looked at. And we wanted them because there was such a small amount of money that was allocated nationally in philanthropic dollars to issues that supported women and girls, that we wanted to help fill that vacuum.
One crazy thing I do remember, I got married within the first year that we were doing the organization, and for my wedding, of course, getting married at that stage in life, things are a little different. I had, in lieu of presents, just to give donations to the foundation, and that was kind of my way of kind of helping. Then afterwards, I went, "Why did I do that?" When I went home.
I remember when our first newsletter came out in November of 1990. On the front page of the newsletter was this picture of the founding board. So you had all these wonderful women, powerful women, great women who've been doing great things in the community, and me. And every time the newsletter would go out or somebody would receive it, I'd get a phone call back then, or I'd run into somebody. I got this newsletter from the women. What are you doing in that group?
We had an office downtown in the Esperson building that had been donated, and Hoffer Furniture donated a desk, and literally this was almost a closet-size office with a desk and nothing else. And I hired a woman who had just moved to town, and I took her down to show her the office, and she accepted the job. And that night she called me and she said, "I just can't go in that office. I would be too depressed." And I understood, but I thought, your job is to find us another office.
Oprah came to town, and her staff was getting very upset with her because she was running late. But they didn't want to interrupt her, so they would say, "Linda, you go in and tell her it's time to go." So I'd knock on the door. She was visiting with some survivors of domestic abuse, and she wanted her time alone with them. So I would knock on the door, and I would say, "Hello, are you ready?" She would say, "Linda, I'm not ready." So finally she left, and we made it on the rest of the day, but it was fun to do that. She was very nice and very delightful to be with.
The Greater Houston Women's Foundation became the Women's Resource, and I think that's a wonderful transition. We are a resource to helping women help each other learn more about managing money.
To think of how far it's come and the rebranding we went through, and now that it's totally focused essentially on financial literacy, I think that's just wonderful, and I think LaTanya is doing a fabulous job, and she will help focus us on the technology and the national resources that are out there now that didn't exist when we started.
I know the issues that led us to really develop the financial literacy part stemmed from a lot from poverty. You had so many single mothers who were trying to raise children on their own. You had the issue of domestic violence. You had the issue of latchkey children. 1 out of 4 Texans were in poverty.
In Houston, 75% of women worked outside the home, which meant that 40 to 60% of our kids were taking care of themselves on a daily basis after school. And so domestic violence was up. There were a lot of things going on that really kind of came together and convinced women that they needed to do more to help each other.
I think it's greater than 50% of the women have the investment wealth in the country. Well, if that's true, then we ought to be in control.
Well, the organization has grown tremendously, and I always felt that it was a very good cause. And so when there's a good cause, you know it's going to succeed.
We know that we can do even more, and so we can't rest on our laurels. We can't say, gee, we're at a great place. We just have to keep on moving.
Go to their luncheons and you see so many young people and so many women still involved. It's a great feeling, so I'm very proud of them.
20 years ago, we said, oh, here's a concept that did not exist in Houston, not even in Texas, really, that to that degree. And we nursed it and nursed it and nursed it along, and people latched onto the concept.
I think we need to continue with the financial literacy. That is critical. But working at the school level to make sure that this doesn't get lost in the shuffle, and I think that that would be important.
We used to have a tagline that we ended every event with, and it went something like this: when you help a woman, you help her family. When you help her family, you save our future. I still believe that that's true.